4-H community, if you're still there, if you were patient during that, and the NAE 4-HA Citizenship Task Force. We're happy to include this webinar in their 2018 period. We're very pleased today to provide information on the Farmer to Farmer program. My colleagues here will introduce themselves in just a moment, but we have here representatives from the U.S. Agency for International Development, the agency that coordinates and provides funding support for this program, as well as ACDI VOCA, WinRock, and CNFA, Cultivating New Frontiers for Agriculture. I'll mention there are some other implementing organizations who are not with us today, but they are Land O'Lakes, Catholic Relief Services, Volunteers for Economic Growth, or VEGA, and the Partners of the Americas. As you'll hear, Farmer to Farmer is not a new program, and I know a number of people at your universities, and we even have somebody here in the room who was a Farmer to Farmer volunteer. I've met a number of these volunteers over the years, and they've all had very, very positive things to say about the program. The logistics, the collaboration with their host country counterparts, the follow-up after the program, and so on. I think it's an excellent way to share knowledge with those in need and gain international experience that promotes personal and professional growth and educate fellow Americans about agriculture and life in other parts of the world. We'll hear today about some of the objectives of the Farmer to Farmer program, a brief history, where around the world volunteers are placed. We'll learn about how programs are planned and developed in host countries, the support that's provided to volunteers, what type of individuals the program is seeking, and we'll discuss the volunteer experience, what it's like to serve in the field. Following the presentation, our panel will have time to address any questions or comments you might have. That might be a little bit limited now, so please send those in through the chat box feature, any questions you might have. You'll hear the presenters during the PowerPoint presentation coming up, but you won't be able to see them again until we open it up for questions at the end. So let's take a minute just to go around quickly and meet those people that are going to be speaking during the PowerPoint, starting with our colleagues from USAID.
Hi, I'm Erin Bays. As Mike said, I work at USAID managing the Farmer to Farmer program. I'm the program analyst.
I'm Gary Alex at USAID working on the Farmer to Farmer program. I've been working with the program for about 10 years and quite in awe of the expertise that volunteers bring to it, the great pool of volunteers that make the program so successful.
I'm Jen Snow. I'm WinRock's program director for our 2 Farmer to Farmer programs. I've been associated with the program for about 13 years, first starting as a Farmer to Farmer volunteer myself, and now I sit on the other side of the table as staff.
My name is Stephen Jacobson. I work for Cultivating New Frontiers in Agriculture. I also started as a Farmer to Farmer volunteer many years ago, and then got involved with it on the other side as well. I'm a senior program officer at headquarters here.
My name is Eric Wallace, and I'm the director of the Farmer to Farmer programs at ACDI VOCA, and I've been involved with the program on and off for 12 years.
Okay, and with that, I think we're going to go right to the PowerPoints, and we'll start off with Erin here at USAID.
Thank you. See if we can advance.
There we go.
So yeah, I'm just going to take a few minutes to give you an overview of Farmer to Farmer and how the program works, and then we'll pass it on to the implementers. So as you can see, we've got Farmer to Farmer. We aim to build agricultural sector competitiveness. We've got 6 goals for the program. The first is generating rapid, sustained economic growth in the agricultural sector, and the second is that people-to-people exchange piece that we get from volunteers traveling overseas. So Farmer to Farmer, basically what we do is we send volunteers from the U.S. agricultural sector, from all different places in the agriculture sector, to strengthen the capacity of different ag sector institutions in our partner countries, in our host. And we work with a wide range of individuals and organizations on both sides, here in the U.S. and in our host country. So the way we expect the program to work is that we send volunteer assignments. They're usually 2 to 3 weeks in length, and the volunteers work with their host organization to provide recommendations, to provide training and demonstrations then those host organizations adopt recommendations or have changes in behavior as a result of those assignments. They're implementing some new innovation or new management practices or technologies, and then as a result of those changes, then we expect to see productivity gains, income increases, improved social, human, and institutional capital. So we're expecting we work on creating impacts for in the economic sector, financial, organizational, and environmental. So just a little bit of history with the program. We're over 30 years old. It was started in 1985 by Representative B. Ryder of Nebraska. We are funded through Farm Bill. We're a Title V program. And the Farm Bill generally provides our funding for about 5-year programs. We've gone through a couple of changes in the name. We were in 2002, the Farm Bill language added John Ogonowski to the name of the program. John Ogonowski was one of the pilots of the planes that crashed on September 11th. But he was really involved in the local agriculture where he lived and in providing opportunity to immigrants who are interested in farming. So it made a really good fit with the program. And then in 2008, the Farm Bill added Doug B. Ryder's name to the program as well, the original founder. So a couple of quick slides here. Here's a map showing the countries that we work in. It's a little hard to see zoomed out like that, but we have 7 different implementing partners who manage the program. They're spread out across all those different regions that we saw on the map. So we've got 3 of them here. Winrock oversees our programs in Asia, and also they have an agricultural education and training program in West Africa. CNFA does Southern Africa. ACDI Avoca has 2 programs in West Africa and Europe, Caucasus, and Central Asia. We also have Catholic Relief Services that implements our program in East Africa, Land O'Lakes in Middle East and North Africa, Partners in the Americas in the Caribbean Basin. And then we have the Volunteers for Economic Growth Alliance that does a special program support project, mostly doing small grants, one-year programs that help us capitalize on some individual opportunities over the 5-year program. And this is just a fun graphic of everybody's logo that we just went over here. But moving on, one of the most important things we like to talk about when we talk about Farmer to Farmer, there's some keys to success that have really helped us go the distance over the 33 years of the program. First of all, we're responsive to local demand. That's one of the bedrocks of the program. So we're responsive to local host needs and interests rather than conceiving of an idea here in capital city somewhere and sort of pushing that down. So before we start a volunteer assignment, our implementing staff in the field, in the countries in which we work, are working directly with the organization to identify what sort of interests they have, what needs that we can help them. And that's how the whole process begins. Our focus is 100% on volunteer technical assistance, provide training, recommendations, demonstrations. We don't provide any subsidies. We're not giving out seeds. We're not small grants or anything. So that does a couple of things for us. First of all, it means that the organizations that we're working with are really committed. They really want to make a change. They're not involved in the program because they want to get something out of it. All they're getting is knowledge and help to sort of boost them forward for the development of their business and their operation. It also means that we're supporting local markets rather than distorting local markets by bringing in something from the outside. It also means that when our volunteers travel to the field and work with the host organization, they have to really work with what's available. So that means that the recommendations that they're making are going to be more sustainable because they're not relying on anything else. They're only relying on what's going to continue to be available. We've got this, that second goal of the program is person-to-person diplomacy. It's one of the things that I think is really unique about Farmer to Farmer. So much of our work, we send consultants or staff members who go out for a short trip and you work with the people you're going to work with, and then that's the end of it. Volunteers are sort of uniquely invested in these kinds of projects. They're not going because they're getting paid. They're going because they're really interested. One of the other really unique things I think about working with volunteers is most of the volunteers that I've worked with are really interested in that relationship. But even after the assignment ends, they'll be following up either directly with their host organization or with the implementing partners that they work with. How's this going? Are they implementing my recommendations? What do they need? What's the next step? Which is really helpful in keeping the project going. We focus on the technical skills. The technical expertise is really what we're trying to promote. So we're not we're a little different from programs like Peace Corps that are bringing people just out of college. Most of our volunteers are mid to senior level, and they've got a lot of experience. So we're choosing volunteers for that strong to be able to provide really high quality expertise to the host organization. We're very closely aligned with broader program strategies in the countries in which we work. We do an analysis of this every year to make sure that each of the programs that we're working on in each of our host countries is really tying into USAID, USDA, other U.S. so that we're short-term volunteer technical assistants, so it always works best when we're tying it priority of ours. We also, all of our awards are made competitively over a 5-year period. So that helps to keep everybody's skills sharp. It also means that there's usually a little bit of a shakeup in countries and implementers every 5 years. So it promotes some cross-pollination of ideas and helps to keep the program pushing for innovation. And then I saved the best for last here. Flexibility is sort of the name of the game. As we've been learning this morning, this is an object lesson. It's one thing to experience this sort of thing here in Washington, D.C. When you're out in the field in Nigeria, these kinds of things are going to happen. So this is another big priority of the program. We need to be able to go with the flow and do what makes sense once we get on the path. So my last slide here, just some of the results we've been able to achieve over the 17 plus years of the program. We've fielded over 18,000 volunteer assignments, worked with over 12,000 host organizations in the countries in which we work. Those are benefiting 1.5 million direct beneficiaries. These are people that the volunteers have worked with directly as individuals. And we're over the whole life of the project, 30 to 40% of those direct beneficiaries have been women. We're always trying to push that number higher, but they're not bad. And then 118 million indirect beneficiaries. These are the farmer families basically that are benefiting from the program, even though they might not have. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Jen to talk a little bit about more.
Yeah, so I'll talk a little bit about the planning that goes into farmer-to-farmer strategies and the individual volunteer assignments. So as Aaron noted, Farmer-to-Farmer is a demand-driven program. At the start of the program, all of the implementing organizations develop a 5-year country strategy. And those strategies are really developed based on our deep in-country knowledge, based on multiple dialogues with various stakeholders working within the agriculture sector, to identify where there are needs, gaps, opportunities, and priorities that the Farmer program can effectively address through training and technical assistance. And then we update those plans every year through our annual work planning process. So that gives us a chance to continuously check in, make sure we're on track to achieve the impacts and results that we hope to achieve through the program, and that we're staying aligned with the country's priorities. Coordination with other U.S. government priorities is really important. So, that might include USAID projects in the future, USDA programs, or other donor-funded projects that are operating in country. The goal there is to build synergies and to prevent duplication. So Farmer-to-Farmer is really looking to fill gaps that other projects are not addressing. We're also fully aligned with host government priorities and strategies as well. So making sure that, if there's a host country agriculture strategy, that our plans and assignments roll up to that, as well as staying in line with the regulations within each of those host countries. Last point here is, as Aaron noted, flexibility is, you're going to hear this again and again with this program, but even though we've got these 5-year strategic plans for each country and each project that we're working on, flexibility is a really important part. And the fact that Farmer to Farmer has flexibility, I think, is really great because it enables us to adjust our plans as the situation in country shifts and as priorities evolve, or if the in-country context changes. So once we've developed our strategies, kind of the next step is to identify the right organization to support. And in Farmer to Farmer world, those organizations are called host organizations. So we, really look carefully at the organizations that we choose to provide assistance to using a variety of host selection criteria. We're really looking to not only identify organizations that need support, but that also have the capability and the commitment to work with the volunteer and follow through with the recommendations the volunteers are providing to them. So we're looking at criteria such as the managerial and technical capacity of that organization, their geographic reach, their beneficiary reach, to what extent they're working with women or youth or other important disadvantaged populations. We're looking at whether or not they're receiving other types of support from other organizations and what that support would be, their commitment to shared goals, their potential for impact, etc. Most host organizations will have more than one volunteer assignment. And so here's where a lot of careful planning goes into making sure that every assignment is targeted to meet that host specific needs and that is sequenced in an appropriate manner. So that might be considering host readiness, seasonal considerations, or a logical flow of activity from one to another. Every assignment is kind of organized around a scope of work, and that scope of work is a detailed document that provides background information to help the volunteers prepare for the work in the field. So the scope of work will provide information such as background on the sector, the host organization, a list of detailed tasks and deliverables that we expect the volunteer to complete during their assignment, a proposed time frame for the assignment, and other logistical and background information to help that volunteer know what to expect. That scope of work also becomes the basis for volunteer recruitment, which Steve will talk about in a second. Some scopes of work are one scope of work per one host organization, and in other cases, we might have one scope of work that covers multiple organizations because there are multiple organizations in a similar area that are working on similar things. So as a volunteer, you might have a scope of work that means you're going to work with one group, or you might have a scope of work that means you're going to work with multiple groups. And then, this is not just a one-off program. So we don't just send one volunteer to one organization and that's it, and then we find another organization and send the volunteer somewhere else. Our field staff are in touch with the hosts multiple times over the course of the program. And so, that's developed at the time of developing our scope of work. It's before the assignments to set all of the logistics so that we make sure that the host is prepared to receive that volunteer. We usually have a staff person with the volunteer throughout the assignment who's there on site with the host. We follow up and do a debrief and additional follow-up after the volunteer assignment. And then at the midterm of the project, we formally do an impact assessment to check in with the host to see, have they been implementing the volunteer recommendations? What kinds of changes are taking place? What kinds of challenges might that host continue to have? And all of that feedback feeds into subsequent scopes of work. So every assignment builds on each other in that sense. And I think that is it for me. I'm going to turn it over to Steve to talk about volunteer recruitment.
Sure, no problem. So what are we looking for in a volunteer? Basically what we're looking for is the tangible skills that a volunteer can have. So for example, I went out to do erosion control assignment, and my background is in hydrology, so it's kind of a natural fit. We also want to make sure that they're going out to do what the host needs them to do. Make sure that they have those skills and abilities, and also to be available when that volunteer, when the host needs them. So you don't want to send somebody out during the dry season to do a planting assignment. The volunteer must be flexible and healthy. Again, flexibility. One of the things that they'll do is go out to the host and do a short assessment at the beginning. If they came unprepared for that type of assignment, then they would need to change their assignment a bit. Obviously, then we're sending people to kind of far and away places. So the volunteers' health is very, very important. Available for 2 to 3 weeks. And then over the long term, we'd like them to be available remotely and assist the host over a longer period of time than just a one-off 2-week period. So being able to talk on Skype or assist with information via email, which is not always the case, but today's changing environment, things like WhatsApp are very helpful for communication with hosts. Next slide. Again, we're looking for people with skills and abilities that the host needs. We find our people from all walks of life, but big ones are farmers, universities, extension agents, business professionals, especially related to marketing and planning, and processors and post-harvest handling specialists. So we really go all the way across the different value chains and covering different levels of that. The mandatory things that need to be submitted to the implementing partner, like CNFA, would be that they need to have a medical clearance. We would do 2 reference checks, and then we would also do a background check to make sure that people are not on the disallowable list. The implementing partner organizes all logistics within the country that they're going to be serving in, and also international flights to the country they're going to. At the end, we have a debrief, which is critical in order to make sure that the organization and also our hosts and our volunteers are listened to, and that will always allow us to improve and evolve to become a better project. Oh, and these are if anybody wants to get in touch with us, those are the people that you need to get in touch with. I guess we could probably send this out later
we could
today.
share this.
But I guess in short, what we're looking for in volunteers is kind of people like you that could that are interested in doing it.
Thank you. So I'll discuss the volunteer experience, and this is what it's like to be a volunteer. And the way we'll discuss this is in terms of expectations. Next slide. There are 3 main stakeholders to a volunteer assignment. There's the volunteer, there's the host organization, and there's the implementing partner, the organizations like ACDI Avoca or Winrock, CNFA that implement the farmer-to-farmer program. So we'll start with what volunteers can expect of their host organizations. So our program serves a wide variety of different host organizations. They're cooperatives, they're private agribusinesses, they're public extension services, they're research laboratories that may be part of a university. We have a very wide definition of agriculture and a very wide definition of farming. So there's a lot of diversity in terms of the host organizations. So our hosts, as we discussed, our hosts collaborate with the farmer-to-farmer field staff to create the scopes of work. What that means for the volunteer experience and what that means for your expectations is that volunteers can expect that your host organization knows why you are there and wants you to be there. For peaceful volunteers in the room, that may not be what the host organizations also provide assistance with a lot of the logistical details of the assignment, with transportation, with meals, with translation, and they provide this logistical assistance within their available resources. A lot of the host organizations we serve have very, very limited resources, and we're mindful of that. But we want the host organizations to have some skin in the game, making it value. Next slide. So what volunteers can expect from their implementing partner is the implementing partners will pay or reimburse for assignment-related expenses. And there are rules around what expenses are allowable. That includes plane tickets, visas, required vaccinations, transportation to and from your home of record to the airport, and other reasonable and allowable and allocable expenses. Volunteers can expect that your implementing partner will orient you both to your assignment, to what's involved with your host to who your host organization is, what's involved with your assignment with them, but also to your country of service. Our countries of service are really different from the US, and there's background information that is helpful for volunteers to know before they begin their assignments. Volunteers can expect that their implementing partner will provide opportunities to have rewarding cross-cultural experiences. You're not just going to be out whacking at the dirt with a stick for the whole time you're there. We want you to experience what it is to go to places that not a lot of Americans go to. The volunteers can expect extensive support from our field staff. all of the implementing partner organizations maintain offices in our countries of service. And we have people who are agricultural experts and people who are experts in mediating between host country nationals and Americans to help you out during your assignment, to help volunteers out during their assignment. Volunteers can also expect that their implementing partner will help out with public outreach efforts. And one of the things we do with public outreach is we ask every volunteer to tell the story of their assignment in your home community when you return from their assignment. That's another thing that we take a wide variety of approaches to. That can be a newspaper article, that can be a radio interview, that can be a podcast, that can be a presentation to a local community organization, where there's a lot of activities fit into the category of public outreach. It's like this. And what we, the implementing partners, expect from the volunteers, that's the next set of expectations here. And as Steve mentioned, flexibility is really key. The environments that we work in are challenging. They are not like the United States. They are unpredictable. They are chaotic. They do not have the infrastructure that a lot of our volunteers are used to. We help you adapt to these things, but we expect that volunteers are going to be able to work productively in these environments. 99.9% of volunteers rise to the occasion. There are also lots of administrative steps to executing a volunteer assignment. There's a lot of moving parts, and it's more complicated than it sounds. We ask that volunteers review their proposed scope of work carefully, educate themselves about their host organization as much as you can ahead of time. We usually ask that volunteers sign a letter of agreement, that they produce a trip report that records the recommendations you've made during your assignment and your observations, and your expense report, so that volunteers can be reimbursed for their allowable expenses. None of these are difficult, but there's more of them than you might think, and they all have to get done. We, the implementing partners, also expect volunteers, and we help out with this, to conduct public outreach in your home community. And like I said, that takes a variety of forms, and we have a lot of capacity to help out with these public outreach efforts.
That includes recruiting for other volunteers.
And that includes recruiting for other volunteers. As skillful as we are at recruiting, the best recruiters are other volunteers.
Right, absolutely.
It is also, lastly, it's enormously valuable to stay in touch with your host organization. And with WhatsApp and Skype and email, that is easier to do than it's ever been before. Sometimes volunteer assignments are the beginning of a relationship that can last many years. We've had marriages between people in the volunteer network and people in the host organization network. And we've had, at least with ACP Avoca, and I'm sure this is true for the other implementing partners, we have volunteers who have been working with in their host countries or with their host organizations for 10 years. It can be it's really cool, and it's a moving aspect of the program to see this relation prosper. So that's it for the formal part of the presentation. I'm going to do Q&A now.
Yeah, just before we do that, and as was mentioned, we will be sharing this presentation, and minus the first 15 minutes or so, as well as the PowerPoint presentation. But before we do that, we have one of our own staff here at NIFA who was a farmer-to-farmer volunteer, I think it was in Nigeria, and that's Erin Riley, a program leader for our tribal college program. So we just thought we'd take this opportunity to have Erin share a couple of minutes about her experience in farmer-to-farmer.
Sure. So last April in 2017, I became a volunteer. And I heard it through another volunteer, through someone who I worked at a tribal college in Albuquerque, Mexico, and he had done a few of these programs, and I thought they sounded really interesting. And so that was how I got an assignment and went to Nigeria, in Zaria, Nigeria. And so what I was doing there was assessment and pedagogical skills in agriculture, and it was a trainer-to-trainer program. And so we worked quite a bit with the college of the Samara College of Agriculture, which is based out of Ahmadu Bello University, and it is located in Zaria, Nigeria, which is in the northern part of Nigeria. And one thing we did do is we did a lot of work. It wasn't sort of like you go to Nigeria and you sit around, and we worked probably 4 or 5 hours a day just getting material ready, and then also working with the classrooms, in the classrooms. And it was an amazing experience, not only culturally, because I've never been to Africa, this part of Africa, but also just to get to know the people in a setting where you become very intimate with them in a sense where you talk about family and you talk about the struggles that they go through. You talk about what they want to help in their community. So it was an exceptional exchange. As for Windrock International, I found it to be amazing, actually, how they pulled it off in terms of getting visas done. When I arrived in Nigeria, there was somebody there to meet me from not only Nigeria, but also a USAID person that was there who spent a day with me to kind of get me adjusted in terms of the location and being in a different culture. And then we flew up to Kaduna, and then that's where we drove to Zaria. And I always had somebody with me at all times. And really, I was amazed that in a country with not very many amenities, how smoothly this went, because it was a great organization, and one of the reasons that I told NIFA about it. So in terms of follow up and how I did it is I did Facebook posts while I was in Nigeria and there. The other thing I did is when I was working at the Bureau of Land Management, I wrote an article for internally, which actually was picked up by the entire BLM Daily, and so it was put out to basically nationally, which was pretty neat to see. And people would turn around and they'd be like, "You did what?" So my coworkers, they didn't know. So that was one of the reasons I think it's an exceptional program, and I would definitely recommend to volunteer for that.
Great. Thanks very much, Erin. And we're going to turn it over to questions. One of the things in working with universities, we realized that in some cases, faculty and extension agents and others are encouraged and allowed to do this as part of their salary time. Other universities are required that they do this as vacation. We certainly have seen the benefits in these kind of experiences. We invest a lot in professional development and pay a lot for people to go to workshops and trainings, but some of these 2 to 3 week experience, there's tremendous professional and personal growth that comes back, in the case of universities, it comes back to the research facility or to the classroom or to the communities that extension serve with all kinds of communication and cross-cultural skills that are well worth the investment. So we certainly encourage universities to get involved in a program like this. Let's open it up. Do we have any questions on the chat line?
I think people are still working on it. We can start with a question here.
Yeah, there might be some questions in the room.
We have a question. We have some of our own NIFA staff here. I don't know if they want to give a question.
Well, I just wanted to thank you all for I honestly did not know great learning opportunity. I honestly wish that NIFA would partner with I think this would be a big I knew that a lot of fellows are subject experts in the area, scientific, master, grad. So I think it's a big
opportunity. Actually, on that, Dr. Qureshi, on that point, we're happy to note that Dr. Broussard has approved that we can have a NIFA staff. They can apply. They have to, of course, be competitively selected, just like anyone else, for the farmer program. But he gave us the okay that a staff member, with the approval of their supervisor, could apply. And as Mike said, as some universities have their faculty and extension agents able to go during their regular work time, and that could also be possible here at NIFA with the approval of the supervisor. So that's a wonderful thing. And part of our reason in inviting this wonderful group on the Farmer here is so that instead of partnering, we're in a sense partnering now so that we can provide another avenue to get the word out to the university community, especially the extension community, about the Farmer to Farmer program. We know that many already know and have already contacts with the different implementers, and we think that's great. We want to see that continue. We don't want to get in the way of that. We also realized that if we can provide an additional avenue, there would be more individuals that you can reach in the entire extension university community that NIFA communicates with all the time. So we're very happy to have this opportunity. And
Thank you for that.
Good.
We had,
Yes, some questions?
just before we go to that, Dave, real quick, because I know we have a number of people in the 4-H program listening in today. Could we say just a word about the need for people to work in youth development? Is that one of the areas that you're seeking volunteers?
If I may
Yes.
say, that's our first question too.
Oh, okay.
Are there opportunities?
Perfect.
So perfect. Are there opportunities for ag-related youth development professionals?
Absolutely. So going back to the strategies that we developed at the beginning of the program, each of us have different places where we might be working with youth within our strategies. Windrock in particular has programs in Asia with a specific focus on youth entrepreneurship. So we actually had a 4-H volunteer from the University of Arizona who helped create the very first 4-H club in Nepal. That was a great success with the Farmer to Farmer assignment. So for sure, there are opportunities on that topic, and probably with some of the other.
And NIFA just partnered with this, and other, just 2 weeks ago, our dedication practice started program, like train the trainer, very heavy. So yeah, I mean, we have the 4-H headquarters, tremendous resource of their prevention. So, great opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr.
At least a couple of questions. Hope and then Jane. Hope, did you have?
Oh,
Yeah.
yes. So I was, Dr. Gonzalez sort of answered it, but I was wondering how that would work if you're currently employed here at NIFA. Would you have to take vacation, or would it fall under absence? How would that?
Thanks for the question, and forgive me for not having clarified that, but what Dr. Broussard said, CIP, our Center for International Programs, had a meeting with them on this particular topic, and Dr. Broussard, who many of you know is our Associate Director of NIFA program, said that he supported the idea that with supervisor approval, you could apply to do it under your regular work time. Yeah, that's the news for the NIFA staff. That is something you get. You have, just like anything else, you have to get supervisor approval. But NIFA is supportive of this as
One of the things we'll do when we send the presentation around, it just occurred to me that our website addresses are not on there. So each of us has a list of open volunteer opportunities that's constantly updated on our websites. And so that's where you would go to apply. Basically, you would, check out the site to see this opportunity looks like something that that matches my skill set, and you can apply that way. You can also contact the recruiters that were listed there that is a more general inquiry as
Jen,
well.
do they have to go to individual organizations, or is there like a one-stop AID site where they could get everyone?
There is currently a one-stop place. Erin, do you want to?
Yeah, so one of the addresses there was for Vega, for Volunteers Economic Lifeline, and they're managing our special work project. So if you reach out to them and apply through them, they will share your contact and resume, the entire farmer. Yeah.
But if you're interested in a particular assignment that one of the implementers is doing, you would go to our website, and then you'd get a lot more details for that, for any assignments that are available.
If you're interested in a particular country, go to farmer-to-farmer.org, and that will have who does what in what country, what the different country projects are, and it'll have contact information for everyone, and it'll have the way to get your resume to SPLAST sent out to all this.
Thanks. So it's farmer-to-farmer.org.
Farmer-to-farmer.org.
Okay, thanks very much. James, you had a question.
we have a comment.
Well, Jane's been waiting.
Jane has, I'm sorry.
No,
Jane has a question.
this was actually to help you. If you send me just a paragraph and a link, I have the listserv for the nutrition extension people that across the country, and for the department heads that are in food safety and nutrition. So just send that to J Clary, CLARY, at NIFA.usda.gov. And I know a lot of extension directors as well.
And,
Thank
and
you.
speaking of extension directors, I have a comment here from the Director of Extension at the University of Nebraska, Lincoln, and he also happens to be the chair of the Committee of Extension Directors. This is Dr. Chuck Hibbard, who's responding to Mike's comment about the value of these experiences. He says, Mike is correct. I have observed amazing growth in extension professionals who have participated in these programs. Frequently, you get there and realize your plans won't work in the setting. So you were challenged to adapt and respond. A great learning experience and validation of extension professional skills that we sometimes take for granted. So there's a great support there for a person who is has a long history in extension, as he realizes the benefits for his own staff, and we've seen other extension professionals. Okay, sure. We got another. Okay. I think I read somewhere that because of the 5-year cycle, that we should be seeing a greater number of volunteer opportunities in 6 to 12 months than we might be seeing now on the different websites. Is that true?
Yes, it is.
Okay, yes, okay. So yes, that is true.
Another comment on the way that the extension staff particularly might be helpful is identifying farmers or agribusiness people that have kind of a broad view of things and that would benefit from and contribute to the program, and encourage them awareness of the program to the people that you work with.
That'd be great to do. Yeah.
And we have lots of material, handouts and other materials that we can share with people who want to share those materials on with others.
Okay, good, thank you. Well, we'll be making all that available. Again, our role here at NIFA, International Programs, is to hopefully be a very productive link for all of you with this wide community. I know we're just at 4 p.m. Anne-Marie, you had a question? That's the ink of pop up here, so you can slide right in here, then we'll have to.
I have 2 questions, so if somebody pops up, they can ask me that first one.
Okay.
Try to start with a more general one. I was intrigued by the mention that these are generally situations that that volunteers are used to. By that, did you mean that volunteers are used to in the U.S. or in other USAID situations? Do you choose this short-term program to work in countries where you don't know if it's going to be possible to be there for you?
Yes. Well, so yeah, I can't really say that it's more fluid than other international programs, but I think just the nature of working overseas, you have to be flexible, you have to be adaptive to the needs. You might get there, and so our host staff are very good at assessing the needs of the host. Our in-country staff are very good at assessing the needs of the host. However, they're doing an assessment over a period of maybe a day or 3 days, here and there. It's not where they're spending an entire day and then the next day and the next 2 weeks with the host. So the volunteers should be able to learn more than our staff in the short period that they have. So we have just encouraged them to say, when I talk to the volunteer, I'm like, we sent you the scope of work. That's what we think you're going to do. We need you to assess do further assessment, and then really dive into what
We've got one comment here. I think Anne-Marie will do your next question. Someone's written in, you can also follow Farmer to Farmer on LinkedIn to see select available volunteer opportunities here. And that's at www.linkedin.com/company/110. That's 110-84293.
We're on Twitter under, I think it's #farmer number 2 farmer.
Great. Lots of ways to be in contact. And again, we aim to help to facilitate more linking. Mike, should we go back to you for?
Well, did we have, we started a little bit late, as you all know, so I think I'm fine with going a little bit over. We still have the majority of participants online, so if there's other questions or other comments in the room, let's go a little bit longer.
This is a NIPA specific question. For those of us that might want to sign up and volunteer. You might remember a couple of years ago, President Obama asked all the agencies, what can you do for me in Afghanistan? And federal employees didn't have much freedom of movement off base there. But one of the things that we found out we could do was to help our very own counterparts who are not farmers, who are bureaucrats, to learn how to be effective bureaucrats, which is something they really hadn't thought about. They knew how to make strategic plans, but they didn't know how to get from the strategic plan to action. And that turned out to be a niche where we can. And it sounds to me like in a farmer-to-farmer program, that's maybe not what you're looking for. You really want the part of NIPA that is agricultural subject matter relevant.
We have plenty of assignments that are focused on strategic planning in and of itself. And that could be at a university, at an agribusiness, with a farmers organization, with a women's group. And so people who can help a group of people to develop a strategic plan and then translate that into an action plan for them and the steps that they need to take to generate success, whatever that means for them. Absolutely, that skill set is something that is of value from farmer to farmer.
We also have the training of trainers, and that sometimes involves, not very infrequently, but university, not so infrequently for the university staff, but then less frequently for the government extension agents in country. That's not as common, but it does occur. Especially the very local level, not national level, but local.
I think we have two last questions on here. Is there any provision of material or financial support for the volunteer for a follow-up visit or activity?
So the follow-up would have to be aligned, for us to pay for it, the follow-up would have to be aligned with our strategies and plans with that host. So if it made sense based on, the plans that we have with that host to do another follow-up scope of work, and have a follow-up assignment with that same volunteer, then absolutely that can come under the purview of our programs. But there might, we do have times where a volunteer makes personal connections that they want to go back and follow up with and sort of outside of the scope of what we're focused on. And in those cases, the volunteers go back on their own.
Thank you. And our last question in the chat, could someone let me know how the meeting participants can access the meeting slides again? Will the materials be sent to us or posted online? And we will be posting the webinar. And
send the PowerPoint.
Yes, send the PowerPoint.
Send the PowerPoint, and that has a lot of the links on there, so that'd be good to share. Well, one of the things that resonated with me that I heard from people too is, and I think it's so important, is that aspect of the requirement to share when you get back with other people. I know Peace Corps was mentioned earlier. I know Peace Corps has 3 goals, and the third goal is to educate Americans on peoples and situations in host countries and developing parts of the world. So I think that's something so critical, maybe now more than ever, in terms of letting Americans know about the rest of the world and opening up behind them. So in talking to one of you in preparation for this, you mentioned that sometimes PhD candidates could also be accepted into this.
We've had a couple of cases where we've had PhD or master's students and or staff that want to take a sabbatical that build a farmer-to-farmer assignment into their larger research or academic professional development goals, and able to accommodate that. Again, it has to sort of correlate with the plans that we have in mind for that country and those host organizations, but we've had good examples.
Education is not a criteria, it's skills. So you can have somebody who's been a farmer for 40 years growing soybeans and with no education, got out of high school maybe and no experience at all as far as education goes, but 40 years of tangible experience. I want to send him.
Exactly.
I mean, he can go out there and say, that's the wrong bean or whatever, and without a piece of paper saying that you're smart, you can just be still as you said.
No, that's great. And that's something our local extension agents have access to all kinds of people. In addition to themselves, they know the people in the community who have those skills.
And the unique thing is that the Southern Hemisphere has different rotation of seasons. So if it's in the summer there, it's the winter here. They want to You want to get out of Iowa.
And who doesn't want to do that? Okay, I'm sorry.
Like
Another
I
question?
said, just one more question
All
come
right.
up. It's to Jen, but I think it's really to all of you. Can you touch on the security measures that are there for the volunteers?
Absolutely. And that is a good question and super pertinent in today's world where, you know, things happen. I think I speak for all of the organizations when I say this is something we take very, very seriously. We all have security staff. So Winrock has a security director that weighs in on every single trip. So every time we book a plane ticket, that security director gets pinged. They know that somebody's going. We are all signed up on a variety of listservs. So every in-country security-related listserv, we're following those so that if there's anything happening in those countries, we know about it. Likewise, our field staff are members of working groups and listservs in the country as well to monitor that. We also assign all volunteers up with the STEP program so that they're registered with the Department of State. So those volunteers themselves will get an alert if there's anything going on in country. And then here's where flexibility comes into play. So our field staff are also trained to be flexible. So we've had cases where there's a protest that we heard is coming in the capital city the next day. So we divert the volunteers' travel so that they're avoiding that location. In some cases, that has meant we're shifting hosts because the location of host A is in a place where things are a little bit unstable. So we find another host that's working on similar activities and shift that assignment to a different location so that we're making sure that the volunteers are not put in a situation that is risky for them.
Great.
So yeah, it's something that we're all really mindful of at all times. I don't know if either of you have any.
Very similar.
And if I may, let's squeeze in one more question. Other than serving as a volunteer, do you envision any other role we can perform for this program as a university? Will ACDI, Volca, and CNFA, and Winrock be looking for ways to connect with our university international program staff to help facilitate the program? Hosting your program staff to get the word out. So if that's something of interest, if you wanted to visit with any of these universities, it seems like I'm not sure which university
If
this
they
is.
get in contact with the names that are on the contact list sheet, and if they want to organize an individual webinar or something like that with our staff, I'd be all for it.
Okay, great, all right.
Yeah, and that gets back to the point that I made too, that, you know, we really do try to collaborate with other efforts. So if there are university programs working in a similar country, let's collaborate. Let's find ways to share resources to build off of each other's work. Sometimes, you know, we can each bring different things. So university might be doing research or testing innovations that then we can bring volunteers to help train beneficiaries in the country to test those further and to roll those types of innovations out. So yes, please get in touch with us if you're interested in other types of collaboration.
Great.
Well, with that, we still have 44 participants, so thank you very much for hanging in there with us. We apologize again for the slow start, but I think it's been a really informative session. I know I've learned a lot, and I really want to thank our presenters from the 3 organizations that implement Farmer to Farmer, as well as our colleagues from USAID for coming over. I think it's a tremendous opportunity for universities and for folks at NEFA and for anybody else that happened to have been here today. So thank you very much. We'll follow up with the PowerPoint, and eventually we'll have this webinar linked to our website. So again, thanks to all involved. Appreciate it.
Thank you.